Hello and welcome to Connect at the Library. I'm Shuttle Library Director Wendy Koheiser. And this month I have some local authors who are going to talk about their books and our local authors book signing that we're having in July. And we'll talk more about that later. I have Betty Fulcomer, Sheri McGuinn, and Lori Acree. And I'm going to have each one of them tell you a little bit about themselves and their books. Sheri has a book out that's been out for a while, The Running Away, and it's fiction, but is it based on true experiences of people you know?
People always ask me that. When I write fiction, the characters develop. They're individuals that are completely separate from any real person. And I get the characters first, and then the things happen. Running Away started as a story about a mother and a daughter, and it's actually more about their relationship and how they lose communication and then how they get it back again. But as far as the characters, well, I've worked with at-risk kids most of my life. I was a CPS worker. I've worked special ed with learning and behavior disorders. I got the really tough kids most of the time. And I actually try to write for them because, like The Hunger Games is a lot closer to reality than Twilight series, but the basic thing is that it's somebody that has a whole lot of problems and they are resilient. They survive. So I do the same kind of stories, but I make it much more realistic. I don't put it in another time or place. So I give the kids just way more problems than the average kid has. And the kids that I really want to target are the ones that have way more problems than the average kid. And quite often they're also the kids that don't want to read.
Right.
You know, they didn't have a good start in life. They didn't have mom pulling them up on their lap or anything like that. So those are the kids I target. So Running Away is about a young girl who runs away, and it goes back and forth between the mother and the daughter's voice. I ended up self-publishing because the Twilight series was out, and if it didn't have a vampire in it, they weren't interested. And also, they didn't like the fact that I had the mother's voice in there. They said, oh, teenagers won't read a mother's voice. Well, I've gotten really nice responses from kids. They like it. They like the fact that they get inside the adult's head and see things from her perspective, too.
Really good.
Yeah. Should I give my whole spiel? I did this through one of those major corporations, iUniverse. They may send something to you if you're a writer. Don't go with them. They charge way too much. They are a complete ripoff. This book is $18.95. It's way too much for an unknown author. I am absolutely amazed. There are hundreds of people up here that have bought this book, and for the cover price, and bless your hearts, I love you.
And we also have libraries.
And the library has them. But I have gone another route with my new novel. This is Michael Dolan McCarthy, and again, it's a teenager with a horrendous amount of problems that he takes on responsibility for his younger siblings. He happens to be a biracial young man. This story you were asking if they're real people. This story was actually sparked by, I ran across a photograph of me when I was in my 20s with a friend and her biracial son, who was only a toddler at the time. And the cover is actually an extreme close-up of his forehead and then photoshopped and played with. And this is what you call a proof copy. I got it printed out so that I could ask some people to proof it and look for typos and things like that. And I decided I don't quite like the cover. I'm going to redo that a little bit too.
Not the forehead, but the nose.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be the forehead, but it's not going to end up quite so dark.
Yeah.
And you're going to be able to tell that this is hair. But that's how I came up with this story. I just saw that photo and thought of that kid, and he is nothing, I'm sure he's nothing like this kid. I don't know him anymore, but he was from a very rich family, and this kid is not.
Yeah. So you get your ideas from a lot of different places, and then just kind of build the story around them.
Right. And like in Running Away, there were a lot of moments that were very realistic. Like when I worked in child protection, my first heavy-duty sexual abuse case, I didn't really believe the girl. She was a pain in the neck. She didn't disclose to me. She disclosed to the sex abuse team. And they told me, don't ask her anything, don't interview her. So I was just taking their word for it that all of this horrendous stuff had happened to her. And she was such a pain in the neck, and she was a promiscuous little snot.
Yeah.
And the day we went to court, it was the perpetrator of the abuse that made me realize that she was telling the truth. Because there was a moment when there was, she hadn't been to a hospital, and the relief on his face told me everything, So I used that moment in here when the mother's confronting her husband. So it's not about what happened in my past, but I used the moment.
Right.
And then my son did run away when he was 17.
Oh.
Disappeared for 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, he was on the milk cartons and everything. And they put the milk cartons in the Midwest, and I thought, what are you, crazy? What kid's going to run away to the Midwest? But sure enough, he was in Minnesota, and a police officer saw him, and he said, I turned 18 2 weeks ago, and the cop told him, call your mother anyway.
Yeah.
So he did, and within a month he was home. And he helped me with Running Away, because there was a moment where the girl has gotten into a bad situation. I said, okay, how can I crank up this tension here? What happens next? And he came up with the idea like that.
And sometimes writing's a collaborative effort too then, right?
Oh, yeah. I
Not
love
everything that you think, but you get input from other people.
I love having a writing group because Running Away I was sending out to publishers, and I thought it was done. And I went to a writing group, my first experience with one, and I read the first 15, 20 pages, and they said, you started in the wrong place.
Oh.
And they were absolutely right. And they ended up hearing the whole book, and I went through the whole thing with them, and they gave me wonderful feedback, because it wasn't just feedback on, oh, there's a typo here or a typo there, but I could listen to their talking about what I had just read, and I got an idea of how the readers would take it. And if I wasn't getting across a point that I wanted to get across that was being misinterpreted, I could catch that and rework it.
So it's another example of not being thin-skinned, thinking that they were criticizing you, but it was your work, and just to try to make it better.
Yeah. Well, I also come from a theater background, and it's whatever works. I mean, I remember we rewrote Shakespeare if an actor couldn't pull off the line, Yeah. So the words are not inviolate for me,
Yeah.
Now, Running Away, I did not want to lose the mom's voice. I went without a regular publisher because I wanted to stay with that, because it was what was necessary to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish.
Right.
But rewriting something, I will listen. And if I love it when people talk about it back and forth, because then I can get a sense of the whole picture. Because if you only get one person's opinion, that's one person's opinion.
Right.
But if you hear people arguing about something in your book, you say, okay, now there's got to be a problem there. How can I fix it?
Yeah.
How can I make it better? So it's whatever works.
Right.